It's a Wednesday edition of Locked On Grizzlies. Marcus Smart almost certainly back for the Memphis Grizzlies, if not tonight, certainly by the end of the week. Is that even a good thing that Marcus Smart is on the mend? Somebody else is coming up behind him in Vince Williams Jr., who might be a bigger impact for this Grizzlies team. And we'll preview Grizzlies-Lakers on ESPN tonight, national TV. How is that going to go? Anthony Davis is back. Going to be a big one. Let's lock in.
You are Locked On Grizzlies, your daily Memphis Grizzlies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another installment of Locked On Grizzlies. I am one of your hosts, Joe Mullinax, joined by my co-host, Damichael Cole. He is of the Commercial Appeal there in Memphis, Tennessee. He's the Memphis Grizzlies beat writer for that publication, and he is on the road. He is there on the ground in Los Angeles. He will be in the flesh taking in Grizzlies-Lakers tonight. Very excited for Damichael, excited to get his thoughts. And he also will have post-game reactions on a Thursday episode of Locked On Grizzlies. Those of you that are everydayers, you are well aware that I am far too old and far too washed to be staying up for an entire game that starts at 10 o'clock on the East Coast. So Damichael Cole will have you covered there, and we'll bring him in here momentarily to have all the good news coming out of Memphis. And it is pretty good news coming out of their locker room, at least when it comes to health improving, at least in the here and now. Today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Friendly reminder that Locked On Grizzlies now has a newsletter. We are introducing the Locked On Grizzlies Daily Newsletter, a one-stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com, and start your day with the all-new free Locked On Grizzlies newsletter. We are free and available, as always, here on Locked On Grizzlies as proud members of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team each and every single day. Like, comment, rate, review, subscribe on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, YouTube. Literally anywhere you get a podcast, you can check out Locked On Grizzlies. Make Damichael and I a part each and every time an episode drops of your Memphis Grizzlies content consumption. Damichael, you're there in Los Angeles. One of the bits of news coming out of Los Angeles from the Grizzlies organization, Marcus Smart deemed questionable for this contest. Usually, not always, but usually when Grizzlies players are coming back from extended absences, a questionable diagnosis, or not diagnosis, a questionable designation means that they are likely to play as long as things go according to plan. That means Marcus Smart is on the mend. In theory, that means that the fourth best player for the Memphis Grizzlies is back, but that guy has not really shown up this season, right? He has struggled offensively in particular, done some good things defensively. He helps out in transition. We know how he's a good secondary and tertiary facilitator of offense. If we can laud, or I can laud, what Luke Kennard did, goodness gracious knows that Marcus Smart can do the same thing, if not better. But his offensive woes, how excited are you to have Marcus Smart back in the fold? We don't necessarily need to talk about who he replaces, but how will that make an impact for Memphis going into a big game against the Lakers tonight to have Smart back out there?
Yeah, so he was a full participant in the recent practice on Tuesday. So things are trending well for Marcus at this point. I think overall, this ankle injury, it's been a buildup for him. He's missed the past 6 games, and you talk about what it means to have him back. In those 6 games, the Grizzlies have won 5 of 6, and 5 of those wins have all been by double-digit points. The loss was by 2 points. And Jalen Wells has played well. Santi Aldama has played well. So it's fair to question, what his impacts mean. But I think, this is like in baseball when they say, look at the back of my baseball card. I think that's what you're betting on with the return of Marcus Smart more so than what you've seen at the beginning of the season. Now, if it was me, and again, this is, you talked about, we're not going to talk really too much about who he would replace in the lineup and things like that. So I'm not going to get too deep into it. But again, if it was me, I'd say, hey, look, Marcus, we've won 5 of 6, and we're beating the crap out of teams right now. So, Don't take it personal. We're going to bring you off the bench just to start, and we're going to adjust accordingly. Maybe you'll finish games. Maybe you'll be in the closing lineups, whatever the case may be. But we'll adjust accordingly. You'll probably jump back in the starting lineup if your play proves to that level. But, he's a vet and all that. I don't think Taylor Jenkins is going to do that. I probably would, but, I don't think Taylor's going to do that. So with all that being said, he's definitely going to be another physical defender that you could throw at LeBron James. We talk about how great Jalen Wells has been defensively to this point, but that's mostly been against smaller guys, right? That's been against Jordan Poole. It's been against Tyrese Maxey, Damian Lillard. Those are the guys, those guards, smaller guards. LeBron James is, we know, that's a 6'8" tractor trailer truck coming at you like full speed. And, we don't know if Jalen Wells is equipped to handle that matchup just yet. But Marcus Smart, from a physicality standpoint, he might not have the height and all that, but from a physicality standpoint, we know Marcus Smart has the capabilities there. So this will be a good game to get him back in the fold, for what he brings to the table defensively. Also, if you go back to last season, he had his best game of the season in LA against the Lakers. That was something that me and him talked about recently as well. After he was struggling when he came back from that injury after Ja got back last December. And then, Marcus Smart came back a couple games later and he was struggling initially. And then, boom, he broke out. He had that game against the Lakers, had a couple more games, before he got hurt and pretty much ended his season. But I think it's a good thing that Marcus Smart is back to just answer the question. But how good is going to be is the next question, because I'm a big believer in if it's not broke, you don't fix it, Joe. And unless it's someone like, Ja or Dez, who are pretty much automatic starters, I think it's okay to bring Marcus Smart, back off the bench. And if he's playing really well, guess what? He closes the game and he still ends up around 28, 29 minutes.
My big thing is I am excited that he's back for the sole purpose that it's a game against the Lakers, more so than the Warriors now or anybody like that. The Lakers are the Grizzlies' rivals, right? These are two teams that very clearly don't like each other. And I think that without Desmond Bane, without Ja Morant, who are the two guiding forces of that dislike, you need a veteran presence that is going to be able to keep the ship righted. That's not really Jaren, right? And I don't mean that as a knock on Jaren. I think Jaren is a leader. Jaren isn't the rah-rah, get in your face. He's not that type like Dez and Ja are. Marcus Smart can be that guy. Marcus Smart has had some battles with LeBron James. He's not afraid of the king.
I tell you what, Joe, bow down. Marcus Smart, when that alley-oop was thrown to Ja Morant and he got undercut and none of the Grizzlies players ran over there to bump I think it was Christian Koloko, if I'm not mistaken, bump the Lakers player. I bet you Marcus Smart wouldn't have stood for that.
No, he would not have. And that's one of the things. And again, it's not necessarily a knock on Jaren. That's just not who Jaren is. I would rather Jaren be true to himself and keep playing good basketball like Jaren has been doing. It's more of a mentality thing. And I really like that with Marcus Smart being back, he's going to bring that energy. He's going to bring that competitive fire. He's not going to shy away from it. Not that the rookies would or that the younger players would. We just haven't seen them in that environment. We've seen Marcus Smart time and again, more so in Boston than in Memphis, but we know that runs through his veins, right? There's no Kool-Aid in those veins. There's blood, and he's going to go and be aggressive. I'm excited in that way. I'm curious to see how he does in terms of creating offense for himself, because that is really where the flaws are magnified right now in his game. Is he going to be able to get his shot off? Is he going to be able, when the Lakers leave him open, because they're going to leave him open, it's going to be Tony Allen 2.0 almost. Like, are they going to be able to convert these looks? Because if they can't, there were times where TA wasn't able to be played. He was played off the court because while he was a good defender, you can't play 5-on-4 offensively, especially without Ja and Dez. He has to be able to hit those shots. That's going to be the biggest difference maker. And to your point, we know that the Jalen Wellses of the world can hit those shots. Santi Aldama can hit that shot. Mm-hmm. Is Marcus Smart going to be able to do that coming off of this injury? That's one of the biggest questions going into tonight for me.
Yeah, me too. But at the same time, again, I go back to checking the back of the car. And last year, he had arguably his best performance in Crypto.com Arena against the Lakers. This is something he pointed out to me. So I know he's going into that building with confidence. And we'll see how it plays out. But it's not like he's going to go into this game hesitant in any type of way if he's playing.
I'm glad that you reminded me that it's crypto.com arena because it'd always be Staples Center to me, always. So that's just another sign of me being old, right? The NBA Cup. And
I catch myself sometimes too, but I actually have to write it down a lot. So that kind of, helps me.
That helps out a lot. Well, let us know how you're feeling about Marcus Smart's impending return, almost certainly tonight against the Lakers. If not against the Lakers, definitely against the Warriors on Friday. But usually that questionable designation after a long absence means he's coming. So we'll see how it works out for Marcus. I'm hopeful it will work out well. Let us know in the comments how you're feeling about the impending return of Marcus Smart. This episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. Maybe you get a hunch in the middle of the game. This Thursday night, football is live. It's the Washington Commanders. Maybe Jaden Daniels is going to come out, throw for over 300 yards, 4 touchdowns. Let Jalen Hurts know who the real best quarterback in the NFC East is. If you have that hunch, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and do so much more on the same exact page where you place a bet like that. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Damichael, there's another return that's coming, one that isn't as probable for the Lakers game, literally the opposite, right? It's a doubtful designation on the injury report from the Memphis Grizzlies. But I would argue, and I think you will too, in the long run, it might have more of an impact than Marcus Smart's impending return, and that is that of Vince Williams Jr. Doubtful for Grizzlies-Lakers, but that probably means that he'll be back on your road trip in the Grizzlies-California swing out there against the Warriors on Friday. Vince Williams Jr. is a guy that I feel like we forget, right? The what he is capable of because he flies under the radar so much. You like to talk to Michael about how he's okay with being the garbage man, right? He's okay with the cleanup duty. He's okay with whatever the team needs him to do. He will go out and do. That is exactly what this team needs right now. They need a rebounder. They need a primary perimeter defender. They need a guy that's going to go out there and do the dirty work. And Vince Williams Jr., not to say that Marcus Smart wouldn't be that guy, but Vince Williams Jr. is just at a stage in his career where the energy is different when he's on the floor. He's a competitor. He's aggressive. He has a little bit more pep in his step. He doesn't have the wear on the tires. I think that Vince Williams Jr., in terms of what this Grizzlies team needs, not necessarily just the mentality, but the physicality, the length on the perimeter, everything that Vince Williams Jr. pulled, it'd be nice to have him against Los Angeles, but especially against the streak.
This is the one. This is the one that I've been waiting on. Vince Williams Jr. You talk about all these different players that you say I like, Derrick Rose and Scottie Pippen Jr. and all these other different guys.
Hold on. Whoa. Time out. The Scottie Pippen Jr. thing is legit. Anthony Zane and Shy, other people on Grizz X are acknowledging that Scottie Pippen Jr.
I like underdogs, Joe. It's okay. I like underdogs. And he's an underdog because, he's the son of a legend and he kind of just was swept under the rug in a way. But Vince Williams, that's kind of how it's been for him as well. I'll never forget in that draft class, and we talked to Zach Kleiman and after they had that draft, and all the questions were David Roddy, Jake LaRadia, Kennedy Chandler was the flashy second round picks, highest guaranteed contract for American second rounder. In NBA, I think NBA history at that point, Memphis kid, Kenneth Lofton Jr. was the undrafted, guy that everyone. Nobody was talking about Vince Williams Jr. He came up on draft night because Zach Kleiman was like, oh, by the way, yeah, this guy Vince Williams Jr. That's kind of how he came up. But you know what? That's how his career has been. And you mentioned all these things that you expect him to be good at, right? Defensively, his length, his size, all that. What about the shooting? This is another plus
Goodness
shooter.
knows the Grizzlies could use that.
They could use him. And he's a plus shooter, and he's not just a specialty guy. You know, with all due respect to your guy and my guy, Luke Kennard, Vince Williams is someone you throwing on the floor, and you don't have to pick and choose like, we're trying to get more scoring on the floor, so we're going to sacrifice some defense for it. Or we're trying to, in the case of some other players, let's get more defense on the floor and sacrifice some offense. Vince Williams is going to knock down shots. He's going to guard. And you just like how we talked about with Marcus Smart, he's going to irritate some guys. They're getting more of those dogs back that can kind of, if there was one critique, and this isn't even a major thing because it's not really a big deal, but it's a big deal to certain players, and I know it can become a big deal. But to me, like, the team has kind of been nice right now. Outside of, Zach Edey, Zach Edey's been, letting guys know every now and then, like, hey, I don't play that. But like that, Josh, I was kind of surprised that no one stepped up, on the Grizzlies team and like, hey, don't touch our point guard like that. I don't think that would have happened.
Grizzlies PR was more aggressive toward the Lakers in their press release than the Grizzlies players themselves.
Yeah, I don't think Steven Adams or Dylan Brooks, would have went for that. But I don't think Vince Williams or Marcus Smart would either. So you're getting some of that. You're getting some of that mentality back where teams know, like, we can't mess with these guys. But yeah, so Vince Williams being back is really going to be a big deal. And then, of course, we'll talk more about it as, that game gets closer and we learn more on just where exactly Vince Williams is. But yeah, right before you play Steph Curry in an NBA Cup game, which I think is a big deal, which Joe doesn't really care about.
Vince Williams Jr. could use an extra day off. I could care less if he plays in the NBA Cup.
That NBA Cup money is $500,000. You think
now Vince Williams Jr. would disagree completely? Yeah, you're exactly right.
Yeah. So I'm look. This is a big move, and I think we both can agree to that. It's the defense. It's the rebounding. It's the ability to guard, different positions and still be a plus player on the offensive end. We saw it. If you want to remember what Vince Williams Jr. brings to the table, go back to Ja Morant's first game last season, December 19th against the New Orleans Pelicans. Marcus Smart was out in that game. So it was Desmond Bane and Jaren Jackson Jr. on the floor, Bismack Biyombo, and Vince Williams started in that game. And that was a signature game for Vince Williams for what he did on defense, and he knocked down some shots.
An extremely important, productive player Vince Williams Jr. is. And I like the dog mentality that you bring up with him. Coming from VCU, mid-major, underappreciated player, all that stuff really does kind of shine through in his game. I think you hit on something there when Ja got hurt and nobody really got fired up at the Lakers in that moment. Marcus Smart would have done something. I believe Vince Williams Jr. would have done something about it too. And what really makes me excited for Vince Williams Jr. coming back is he is going to provide this team a form of identity that I don't know that they get from anybody else, because Marcus Smart has a pedigree, right? Like, Marcus Smart is a former defensive player of the year. Yeah. Marcus Smart, people expect him. He's played over 100 playoff games. He's basically like the perimeter Draymond Green at this point in some ways, right? Not as annoying as Draymond Green, but in terms of how he's perceived, I could see him kind of getting that vibe. Vince Williams Jr. still has something to prove. And that's not to say that Smart doesn't play his tail off, because obviously he does. Just watch him play. It's not an effort issue. I'm not saying that at all. But it's just different when you haven't been there before, right? It's just a different mentality. He's trying to get there. And I think that is going to create a lot of movement for this team, not just on the court, but also off of it, in terms of the energy that type of mentality provides. Not everybody carries that with them on a 24/7 basis. Marcus Smart does, but again, Marcus Smart has been there for a while. Vince Williams Jr. hasn't been to that caliber yet. He has that chip on his shoulder still fully planted.
Yeah, and he earned some stripes last year. Luka gave him some good credit. Kevin Durant, gave him some nice words as well. And those things meant a lot to him. You could tell. Vince Williams, if many people don't remember, but he's not a man of a lot of words. He just goes out there, does his work. And like you said earlier, he's a dirty work guy. Like, he's going to let Ja and Dez and Jaren get in front of the camera, and he's like the guy that's just standing behind them in the shadows. And everyone's like, who's that back there? But he's still seen. He's still noticed because of what he brings to the table. So, yeah, getting him and Marcus back. The defense has already been trending up, and I was talking to Taylor Jenkins about that yesterday, just saying, they're starting to really focus in and do some of the things defensively that he wanted to see this team do. We're talking about all these injuries, like I'm sure maybe we'll get more into it the next segment with Brandon Clark being questionable and him actually being a good rim protector up to this point of the season. Having these guys who are good at the point of attack, like Vince Williams and Marcus Smart back, could also help this defense improve even more.
Yeah, especially with Anthony Davis back in the fold for the Lakers. This is going to be a big one in terms of rim protection, and potentially not having Brandon Clark, that could sting. But you're right, partner. We will talk about that next here on Locked On Grizzlies. Let Damichael and I know how you're feeling about Vince Williams Jr. Excited for him to come back, maybe a little bit nervous, not remembering what he's capable of. Maybe you have a different recollection than Damichael and I. We're both excited. We think you should be too. But we're previewing Grizzlies-Lakers next here on Locked On Grizzlies. This episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by Mint Mobile. With big wireless providers, what you see is never what you get. Somewhere between the store and your first month's bill, the price you thought that you were paying magically skyrockets. With Mint Mobile, you'll never have to worry about gotchas ever again. When Mint Mobile says $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan, they mean it. Say goodbye to your overpriced wireless plans, jaw-dropping monthly bills, and unexpected overages. Mint Mobile is here to rescue you with premium wireless plans starting at $15 a month. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Ditch overpriced wireless plans with Mint Mobile's deal and get 3 months of premium wireless service for $15 a month. To get this new customer offer and your new free 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/lockedonnba. That's mintmobile.com/lockedonnba. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/lockedonnba. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. All right, partner, ESPN game tonight. Big time show. Grizzlies-Lakers. No Ja Morant, no Desmond Bane. The Lakers obviously still have their stars. Anthony Davis did not play the last time these two teams met up in Memphis. That is not the case tonight. Anthony Davis is back. You talked about the likely or the possible, right, questionable designation for Brandon Clark. Obviously, we talked about Marcus Smart earlier in the show. What are you looking for as you show up to crypto.com arena, right? I got it right.
There you go.
What are you looking for in this game? You get to be there front and center, checking it out, covering the Grizzlies for the commercial appeal. You'll also have our Locked On Grizzlies Thursday episode there for everybody. Because again, for those that are everydayers, I am old and washed and I'm not staying up to watch that whole game. I'm not, but Damichael will be there. So he's got your Thursday episode solo. What are you looking for in terms of how Memphis can win this game in Los Angeles against the team that is playing pretty good basketball as of late?
Yeah, how much is new and how much continues to trend in the good direction that they've been going in as of late. And what I mean by that is if you go back to that last game against the Lakers, yeah, you could point out the fact that Ja Morant's not going to be available and things like that. But I don't think Ja Morant not being available changes much from what we saw from this team defensively in that game. They really gave the Lakers a hard time on the defensive end. Now, Anthony Davis being back, that changes it. And, LeBron, who scored 39 points in that game, not having to shoulder as much of a load, that changes it. But with all that being said, and the Lakers being undefeated at home, like there are a myriad of factors that go into play here. This is a good litmus test type game. Like I said, the Grizzlies have just been, beating the socks off a team as of late. Like they all these wins have been double digits. They're playing really good basketball. The offense is flowing much better. Now you're going to go against a defense that's going to be a little bit more physical. You're going to go against veteran savvy guys. LeBron James is going to be able to spot some of those back cuts when they're coming some. And then even when you get those guys on the cuts, they got to finish over Anthony Davis at the rim. This isn't just any other rim protector. So with all that being said, this is going to be a great test for how the Grizzlies have progressed to this point. We feel like over the last week, we've seen a team that's been steadily improving, but we've also seen a team that's played the Wizards and the Blazers. And in that, it was nasty, Joe. At one point, they had Donovan Clingan and Robert Williams as the front court. I was like, what in the world am I looking at right here? But anyways, that's neither here nor there. This is going to be a really good test for the Grizzlies from that standpoint. We know in these last couple games without John Morant, without this, Jaren Jackson Jr. has been pretty much unstoppable. 39 points a couple games ago, 20 points in 3 quarters in the most recent game, led the team in scoring. Now he's got to go against Anthony Davis, and he's had some success going against Anthony Davis and LeBron at times. Go back to game 1 of that playoff series, 2023. But he's going to have to be that guy. And I just, from the continuity standpoint, with Marcus Smart, if he's available, how does that shift things? Are they able to still be in the same flow that they've been in as of late? If Brandon Clark is unavailable, now you're talking about, Zach Edey and Jay Huff getting a larger sample of the minutes, because now more than likely Zach Edey returns to the starting lineup. Now he's going against Anthony Davis in the starting group, or you put Jay Huff up there. So whatever the case may be, it's going to be something different, because Brandon Clark has played well in his starting role as of late. If he's unavailable, I saw him after practice. He didn't look too bad or anything like that. Nothing noticeable, but not a lot for me to take from it as well. So with all that being said, his availability will be a big factor. I know Brandon Clark's counting stats haven't been what people are used to. You're used to him averaging double figures and things like that. But as I said earlier, he has graded out solidly as a rim protector. And the chemistry standpoint of him and Jaren Jackson Jr., they switch everything between those two. It's a little bit harder to switch things with Jay Huff and Zach Edey, because they're bigger guys and they're not as mobile as Jaren Jackson Jr. and Brandon Clark.
The switchability is gigantic. If they do not have Brandon Clark in this game, it changes my view of it. If Clark is able to play his usual allotment of minutes, I would pick Memphis to win, because I think in those minutes, the Grizzlies are at their best against this Lakers team. It's all about matchups, right? You talk about that all the time in the NBA. How do you match up against this team? They need Brandon Clark for this matchup. If they don't have him, I think we saw that numerous times over the last year or so. Without Clark, it really exposes Jaren when he is at the 5. I think Jaren is improving in that role, but I think a major reason that he's having success is because Clark is up to snuff on the defensive end. You're exactly right. He's not scoring the way you'd like him to, but there's reasons that other statistics exist, right? Like defensive plus minus and on-off numbers. Brandon Clark's on-off numbers with Jaren Jackson Jr., their defensive efficiency, it is out of this world. The sample size isn't big enough to talk about it a ton, but it's big enough to keep an eye on it, how impactful those two are together. Clark's designation matters more than Marcus Smart for me going into this game tonight. I am also interested in seeing how Jalen Wells responds, because he probably is the one most likely to get bumped to the bench if Marcus Smart is indeed a starter again. Doesn't mean Wells is out of the rotation. I think he comes in that reserve role. Can he be the type of player that they need him to be? I think we've seen enough mental acuity and toughness from him that he will go out there and ball regardless of what his role is, especially as a rookie. But the Grizzlies arguably have the 2 best rookies in the entire NBA on their roster, right? So having those guys, if Brandon Clark is out and then Marcus Smart does indeed play, both of Edey and Wells adjusting their roles, that is going to be a key to this process, especially against a Lakers team that has a lot of veteran cogs to it.
Yeah, and a big part of this is this will be the second time that the Lakers saw Jalen Wells. So Jalen Wells, like a lot of rookies sometimes do, and just anybody, when you play against them for the first time, you have the ability to sneak up on an opponent. And what did we see with the 2 games against the Brooklyn Nets? First game, really good, right? Second game, wasn't that good. So same thing with the Lakers, and the Lakers have a lot of respect for what Jalen Wells did. I mean, LeBron, gave him a tap on the head after he made one of those shots. I think the Lakers bench was talking trash to Jalen Wells at one point, and he knocked down the three-pointer. He pointed at the Lakers bench, and they were just looking at him going down the court like, what's this guy? But, you earn respect that way. So I don't think the Lakers will go into this game like, let him shoot. Let's make him prove it again. No, they're going to say, hey, he's a shooter. Remember him? Watch him. Now, that's when we say, the book is kind of out on you, right? So the book league-wide is not out on Jalen Wells yet, but this is the second time. We saw it with the Nets. They saw him the first time, had a really good game. Second time came around, he struggled a little bit more. Now you got the same opportunity with the Lakers.
Let Damichael and I know in the comments. Hit us up on X at Damichael C for Damichael at Joe Mullinax for me. Let us know how you're feeling about tonight's game. Again, it's on ESPN. Going to be a great opportunity for the team. 7-4 Grizzlies. I think the Lakers also are in a similar boat in terms of their seeding hopes. Yeah, there you go. So 4 losses for the Lakers, 4 for Memphis going into the game.
Undefeated at home.
That's important, and we know how significant that can be. When the Grizzlies are cooking, FedEx Forum is a great advantage for them. Can Memphis be road warriors and pick up a big one on the road tonight? That's going to be the key. Tomorrow, as I've said a couple of times throughout this episode, Damichael, it'll be you solo because I am washed and old, and I will not be up to record after Grizzlies-Lakers. What are your plans for the Thursday edition of the show for our everydayers?
Yeah, we'll pretty much just break this game down. I'm interested to see what Marcus Smart looks like if he's back. How the Grizzlies play against Anthony Davis as well. This is going to be a good matchup. I said it before that last matchup against the Lakers, before Anthony Davis was ruled out. I wanted to see Zach Edey in that matchup against Anthony Davis, right? How is he going to move his feet? How is he going to adjust to that matchup? Those are 2 things that I'm really looking forward to seeing this go around with LA.
So Damichael will have you solo on our Thursday edition of Locked On Grizzlies. I will have you solo on Friday because Damichael is traveling, going from LA to Oakland and the Golden State area and doing all those things. So I'll be solo on Friday. Damichael will have you Thursday. We'll close out the week with 2 individual shows. We'll be back together this weekend for our Monday episode of Locked On Grizzlies. Thank you so much for being with us on this edition of the podcast. Remember that we now have a newsletter, Locked On Grizzlies daily newsletter, one stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at lockedondaily.com. That's lockedondaily.com and start your day with the all new free Locked On Grizzlies newsletter. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube. Make sure you're checking us out, becoming a part of the Locked On Grizzlies momentum wave, right? Ride the wave of Locked On Grizzlies. Be an everydayer. Each and every time an episode drops, hang out with Damichael and I as we talk Grizzlies basketball as the season grinds forth. For Damichael, I'm Joe. Safe travels, partner. Enjoy yourself there on the West Coast. Have a great time covering for both the commercial appeal for the day job, obviously, but also for Locked On Grizzlies. Make sure you guys are with Damichael, breaking down all things Grizzlies-Lakers on the Thursday show. For Damichael, I'm Joe. Stay locked in. We'll be back with you tomorrow and Friday talking Grizzlies-Lakers, Grizzlies-Warriors, all sorts of basketball talk. Catch you next time on Locked On Grizzlies.